That was fascinating. That was great. Wow, I learned some stuff there, to say the least. A few days ago, I met with a group of students here. I think it was a fairly random sample of our undergraduates. These are a group of orientation advisor students. They're helping the fresh people show up here at USC. And I was introducing them to the work of our Office of Religious Life, telling them what I'll tell you. This is welcome to USC. Most religiously diverse campus in the country, 85 religious clubs, all the religions of the world. We have atheists, we have Zoroastrians, we have everything in between. An amazing place to experience the religious diversity of the planet. We're also in the most religiously diverse city in the country. Diana Eck at Stanford, from Stanford, but no. Diana Eck at Harvard, Pluralism Project, has actually documented that LA has more religious diversity than any city in the world. And one way she illustrates that is by saying there are more different kinds of Buddhists here in LA than there are in Bangkok, which is a Buddhist city. So it's an amazing place for us to experience directly the faith traditions of other peoples. An amazing place for interreligious dialogue, and I'm delighted, we're delighted that you're here to participate in what we're all about at our office. So anyway, I was breaking in these orientation advisors to what we're about, and early on in the discussion I asked them, I said, okay, so how many of you are religious? And let's see, 16 students of the 25 raised their hands. Then I asked, how many of you are spiritual but not religious? Instantly, I got a reaction from the kids who had just raised their hands to say they were religious. Oh, well, if you'd given us that option, we would have put up our hands. And I go, okay, we'll start over. How many of you are spiritual but not religious? 17 of them put up their hands. 10 of them were among the group that had said that they were religious. Okay? So that got interesting. So then we had 6 students who said they were religious, and we had 2 who said they were neither religious nor spiritual. Well, that moment with the freshman orientation advisors left me with this question. What is the meaning of interfaith dialogue among the rapidly increasing number of people who have no formal religious affiliation at all? SBNR, spiritual but not religious. Clearly a category that's gaining ground in this country. According to the latest Pew Center for Research and Religion in America, you can go to their website, read it all yourself. It's very accessible, clearly put out. We're now at 23% of people between the ages of 18 and 29 who have no religious affiliation at all. Very substantial increase. You can do your math and your prognosticating about where this is headed in this country. The trend is likely to accelerate into the future. The country would appear to be heading in the direction of Europe, which has had a dramatic drop in formal religious participation over the last several decades. I'm an ordained United Church of Christ pastor, theologically and socially progressive Christian, Protestant. My denomination has been in a steady decline ever since I was, in terms of numbers, ever since I was ordained in 1981. Ever since that time, our denomination has been going through reorganizations and restructurings, which I would liken unto the rearrangement of the deck chairs on the Titanic. Now, for years, we in the liberal progressive wing of the Protestant church have labored under the assumption that our decline was being caused by the fact that we do not require people to have a set, fixed theological position, that we are not authoritarian, that we don't have an emphasis on dogma and doctrine, that we let people honor their consciences and experience and figure out their theology for themselves. And we thought that was causing our decline. The statistics today would suggest that that is just not true. The decline in Christianity in America is not happening at the expense of progressives or liberals. It's happening across the board. There's a lot of churning, of course. Mega churches grow, get big, get strong, sucking the life out of many churches in the process. The overall number of Christians in the country doesn't change much, certainly not among native-born Christians, native-born Americans. The numbers are going down. The Southern Baptist denomination, once the boogeyman for all of us liberal Christians, is now in decline. 30 years ago or so, when the Presbyterian Church, the Southern branch and the Northern branch reunited, the prediction was, well, they're so theologically fuzzy, everybody will go over to the PCA, Presbyterian Church in America. That didn't happen. Both denominations, PCA and PCUSA, are going down in numerical size. Yeah, so it's not just about theology, but what type of church we have here in this country is whether it's going to thrive or decline. I don't know, maybe you've heard this joke, I love this one, of the Jehovah's Witness who converted to being a Unitarian and then went door to door for no particular reason. You know, the fact is that everybody's suffering whether they go door to door or not. Whether they have anything to say when they get to the door doesn't seem to matter that much in terms of the numerical health of these denominations. You know, there are a whole bunch. Actually, the Unitarian Church is growing a little bit, believe it or not. Many of its churches are thriving. I go to a very thriving, very active United Church of Christ congregation, very progressive theologically and socially. You know, our pastor's a lesbian. We're going to the gay pride parade tomorrow in West Hollywood. And we're growing. Who knew, you know, that liberal churches could grow? But plenty of others. For everyone that's growing, there are two others that are declining. So the numbers overall are going down. I think that the 10 students that changed their vote from religious to spiritual but not religious, I think they spoke volumes when they raised their hands in that discussion here the other day. I've had long chats with students like that over the years, both at Stanford and here at USC. And SBNR students, if you will, that's a gross generalization, but there's some truth to it. They experience the spiritual dimension in their lives. They value it very much. They're very interested in it without having any desire or even interest in affiliating with a particular religion. I do not believe that secularism is the big danger for religion, organized religion in America today at all. I don't think the statistics from Pew Research Center would support that. Secularism, indifference, rejection of religion, atheism, despite, you know, the publication of these books by our 4 public atheists these days, that is not the threat to religion in this country at all, I don't think, or not a very big threat. The real issue would appear to me, from talking to students, talking to others, in my role as a pastor and as a campus minister, is that people are less inclined to trust or care about having any interest in affiliating with formal organized religion. They're finding other ways to express and pursue their spirituality. They're pluralistic in their view of religion. You know, today we have mosques, we have Hindu temples showing up in the Bible Belt. It's harder and harder and harder for people in this country to comprehend even the concept that one religion could have all the truth and other religions are false at best and evil at worst. That doesn't make sense to a lot of people, to an increasing number of people. It doesn't add up for them. They don't experience that. They meet lovely, faithful people of other traditions, and they just can't imagine that any one religion could make that claim and make it stick. They, of course, have seen a lot of scandals and salacious stuff that's gone on in churches and temples and organized religion of every kind. That has certainly had an effect on their lack of appreciation for affiliation. but as part of an overall cultural trend in this country of distrust in institutions. You know, people are starting to register as independents when they pray. That's what's going on. You know, the political parties are going down. Funny thing. So is organized religion. And even if people have an affiliation, and even claim a strong affiliation with their faith, it's not just your 19-year-old Mormon men going out knocking door to door before they've read the Book of Mormon. It's everybody else too. The level of religious education in this country is pretty shallow in terms of the level of knowledge that people have about their own tradition that they claim and value. It's a real problem across the board. And I see it here at USC. I saw it at Stanford too. You know, having a religious education does not count for a whole lot on your college application. Soccer, violin, et cetera, that matters. And so, funny thing, that's what happens on Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon. That's where people are going. Religious education suffers as a result. It's lower on the list of priorities for our kids as we get into the competitive drive to get into the best colleges. So students who come to USC who claim a strong affiliation, really are believers and dedicated to their faith, often have the most rudimentary knowledge of their faith tradition. And I see this play out in many contexts. Part of it is, again, this anti-institutional quality of our country plays out in a lot of ways, including in traditional organized religion. At Stanford, over the years that I was there, I was actually involved in campus ministry there for about 25 years, one way or another, and the overall number of Christians stayed the same, or of religiously affiliated people stayed the same. The only reason it stayed the same is because of conversion to Christianity of Asian and Asian American students, period. The strong attraction of evangelical Christianity, particularly to Chinese students. You know, the Indian students here, you know, they come to the evangelical groups are trying to convert them to Christianity. I watch them in action. And they invite the Indian students in, and they serve them curry and tandoori, and they have a nice time, and the Indians, they smile politely, and they nod, and then they leave, because they're not interested in evangelical Christianity, because they come from a country that's got a God surplus, you know? They are here to get away a bit from that whole, and they already get it. You know, Jesus is an avatar of Brahman. We're cool with that. We're good with that. You know, they have this, they're not interested. Chinese students from China there's a very powerful trend toward them being converted. So they're the growth industry for, you know, get busy, you Mormons. Get out there and start talking to our Chinese graduate students that are coming in. That's the only reason that the numbers stay roughly level at these campuses. So across the board, though, there's a tendency away from denominationalism and towards kind of a generic Christianity, right? I think that might possibly be reflected in the big letters of Jesus Christ under the Church of Latter-day Saints. It's part of that trend. So what we see at Stanford here at USC too is every year the number of students who identify themselves in their freshman religious preference card as being Christian, that number stays. You know, there are more and more Christian students who are no longer referring to themselves as Methodists, Presbyterians, Episcopal, et cetera, et cetera. They can't even spell the words anymore. So generic Christianity stays about even. Denominational Christianity is in a terrific slide in terms of identification and a sense of affiliation. So the students, you know, a lot of the evangelical students primarily refer to themselves as just Christian or non-denominational Christian. I'll give you an example of how this plays out. Basically what's happened is that the churches have erased the history of Christianity between St. Paul and the rise of evangelical fundamentalist Christianity in America 150 years ago. Erased that whole history. So now you get a situation like this one. A new Christian group, we have 52 of them. We have about 48 evangelical Christian groups on campus, all competing for the same population. And we had new ones popping up all the time. So we had a new one come in the other day for registration, wonderful kids, and they came in, I said, what's the name of your group? Christian Club. I go, what kind of Christian club? We have, 52 of them here. Christian Club, that's the name of the club. I go, cool, that's neat, but, who are you? I mean, where did your church, where did your church or your group come from? We're just Christians. Well, these are Chinese-American, Chinese students. And I said, okay, say more, who are some of your leaders, people you listen to, blah, blah. And finally, I figure out they're part of the Watchman Nee sect, which is a really interesting branch of evangelical Christianity that came out of China back around the time of the Second World War. Really interesting group. They had no idea they were from the Watchman Nee sect. So I'm explaining, I get them behind my computer, I go, check it out. This is Watchman Nee. This is where your whole thing came from. Check him out. He's really interesting. They're like, oh, that's cool. Anyway, this happens all the time. Then I hear all the time, we hear students saying, well, I used to be Catholic, but now I'm Christian. Like, wow. There's about, about 1,800 years there that you missed. But the point is that the churches don't want their young people to know the history of Christianity. So funny thing, they don't have it. They don't have the background. So for a whole bunch of reasons, that knowledge level is pretty weak. So in that context, you have, in this soup of spirituality and religion on a campus like this, and in the culture generally, you have more and more heterodoxy, right? People mixing and matching and developing their own theologies. That's the statistical trend from the Pew Research Center too. Dramatic increase in heterodoxy. Now you have evangelical Christians, lots of them believing in astrology and reincarnation. And the list goes on. It's across the board. The majority now of young evangelical Christians in this country believe that other religions can be as valid for others as theirs is for them, contrary to what their pastors are telling them. That's what they believe. This is part of this anti-institutional or breakdown of authority, if you will, that's going on in religion in this country. I don't despair of this. I don't think that the Office of Religious Life at USC is going to shut down anytime soon for lack of interest. Quite on the contrary, the interest is intense. We get a lot of turnout to our speaker events, our concerts, we have films, we have an interfaith council that's extremely active, an interfaith choir, and our religious clubs are alive and well. Religious life isn't going away, spiritual life isn't going away. It's thriving, but in a different way, a different context, different sense of what that means. People are claiming their own authority to experience and express their spirituality. It's at every level. So, within Christianity, there's this huge shift towards Pentecostalism. It's a big deal. LA is where it started, spread around the world. Now it's coming back to LA from the countries to which it's spread as our immigrants come in with their Pentecostal beliefs. And what's that about? It's about God speaking directly through ordinary people. You've got millions of Joseph Smiths out there now in the Pentecostal churches that have experienced God directly. And this spreads at every level. I worked in Marin for about 5 years as a pastor of a church. I want to let you know that is, if you're looking for a challenge as a religious person and a religious leader, that would be it. Go to Marin County. It is the Bible shoestring of America. It has the lowest, probably the lowest, formal religious participation of any place in the country. Certainly Christian participation. I mean, I met, I think, all of the evangelical Christians in that county in the course of my time there, all 10 or 12, no, not that many, but I mean, it's a highly educated community. Most people have master's degrees, very affluent. But it would just blow your mind what people believe there. I mean, the people's willingness to believe stuff that's without any foundation in science or common sense is fabulous. You know, people are wearing amulets. They're, you know, putting crystals in their water to get the energy from that. They're, oh boy, you know, this is in the church and outside the church. I was working in a church, and my people believed all sorts of amazing stuff that had no grounding in reality that I could discern. You know, they firmly believe, you know, tens of thousands of people there firmly believe that physical ailments are caused by bad mental thoughts. They basically believe in science of mind kind of point of view, and that's across the board. So what I found there was a level of credulity in the fantastic that rivals that of you know, six-day creation fundamentalists in eastern Kentucky. You know, in Marin County, it's no different. But this eclecticism across the board, this heterodoxy is a big trend. So we can fret about this, we can wring our hands about it. Again, it's not indifference, it's not secularism at all that's going on here. It is fantastic churning and a sense of personal authority to determine what's right for them. Get ready, Mormons, get ready, evangelical Christians, for the wave that is about to hit you. It's coming. One sign of it is that I thought that has completely blown my mind is we have a new group of students coming to our office that I never met before. You know, for 30 years I've been talking to young gay and lesbian people who grew up in evangelical or fundamentalist Christian households who are in anguish and torment. They're coming out. They realize this is who they are. It is the way God made them. And they are recognizing this, and they are coming out, and they have to quit their churches. There's no home for them in the church. They have to leave. There's nowhere for them to be where they can be who they really are. So that used to be how it was. People just quit. They might become progressive Christians, join my church, maybe, usually just dropped out. Now you have evangelical Christian students who are gay and lesbian who've read their floppy Bibles, and they figured out that who they are isn't in there. You know, that the Bible doesn't really refer to them as a class. They are different. They have committed relationships. They're not about non-consensual homosexual activity, which is what was the problem in the first century. They're over it through the Bible. Now they're arguing with their pastor. They're staying in their churches, and they're arguing with their pastors, and they're having conferences with each other. They found each other. They found their voice. They found their authority, and they're staying. Amazing. This is unheard of only 5 or 10 years ago. So this is part of a larger trend, and I think we have to pay attention to this. I think it is hardly a sign of the collapse of religion or spirituality in this country. It is a big change. So the question I have to ask that I leave you with in this conversation is this. What does interfaith dialogue mean in a country full of people who are having interfaith monologues? Seriously. Interfaith activity here in LA, certainly on campus, attracts a lot of SBNR people. Our interfaith council, about a third of our students are not formally affiliated with any religion, but they are fascinated by religion. They love it. They can't get enough of it. They're terrific contributors to our interfaith council, even though they don't have a faith affiliation. They learn so much from those who do have an affiliation. They really appreciate those who are very fervent and strong in their faith. And yes, we have terrific Mormon representation in our group. So they love it. They have no interest in joining any church or temple or anything, but they love it. So there's hope for new kinds of religious institutions, new expressions of religiosity and spirituality, new ways to think about it that embrace people who have this point of view and this way of appropriating and appreciating spirituality. Thank you for this opportunity to have you here on our campus and for this dialogue.